All right, howdy guys. So I'm redoing a dirt takeoff because apparently the audio on this last video was bad, but we're going to go ahead and get started, start over again, run through this set of plans. So this is a commercial development going on in Georgia. Again, if you guys want to see me do a takeoff or any kind of estimate for your project, send them over. We'll see what we can make happen. First things first, setting our scale. We can see over here we got 1 inch equals 30 feet. So I'm going to hit my scale button, ratio 30 feet. Now I like to check because sometimes these aren't scaled correctly. We look good. All right, and I'm going to crop this out so that we don't have to deal with a bunch of this extraneous stuff. That's not a good crop. Let me try again. All right, guys, wherever you're watching from, let me know. Are you a project manager? Are you an operator? Are you an estimator? Or are you just a guy wanting to figure out how construction works? How are we doing this? All right, so we're going to add a feature surface, come into here to contours, and I'm going to start to load these bad boys up. So a little about me. I've been a civil estimator for many years now, and I have a company, and what we do is we do civil estimation and cost management. We also do kind of large scale development management, but that's about it. I specialize in the civil area. We got architectural people, structural people, some elect, some mech, all that kind of stuff. But yeah. All right, let's find us some lines. So we got 1194, 96. So the thing about these lines is typically these big ones of 10 have their own little line size. So you'll see if I zoom out, there's only two. That's because it's probably 1200 and 1190. And then I come down here, I'm going to add another filter, select some of those lines for those contours. There we go. All right, let me do a quick move over here. So we've got a bunch of these like random small stuff. I'm going to go ahead and remove those. Let me come up here. Looks like I got them all. Okay. Let's go ahead and see if we can poke out some problem children. Doesn't really look like there's a bunch. So these are actually made pretty well. All right, so let's knock out most of these real quick. So I go to set multiple elevations, go from 88, cross off as many of these as I can. And this is a 12, I believe, right here. So 1188. Now they do go in 2 foot intervals. So I hit 2. It's ascending because it's going up next. Now you can see this one and this one are not connected, and they should be. So let's go ahead and join those together. Perfect. And it looks like we got most of them. I do need to come into here and check out what's going on right here. This should be 96, yeah. 94, 92, 90. So this should be 88, but it looks like it is not connected to our original 88. Oh yeah, so this is like a big hill right here, or really a hole. And then this is a retaining wall coming in right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and set multiple. So this is 1188 again. We're going by 2s, but it's going down this time. So I'm selecting descending, continue. Next. Okay. So I can see we've got some more below this 84. Honestly, these aren't super troublesome. They're kind of outside the limits. Yeah, so what I'm going to do, since these are kind of outside the limits of disturbance, I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of these. Let's leave my contour lines. This one doesn't need to be here either. All right, now we just got these random ones. Make sure this is closed, so if you ever have like a big hill or something, it's going to be a closed one. If not, it'll read it incorrectly, and it'll be a big pain in the butt. You have to go back later. All right, 1198. Same thing, it's closed. 1196. So we're just checking off the boxes of stuff. Let's see, we got another hill over here. So this one doesn't have anything set, but I'm between 1200 and 1200. So I'm going to say this is 1202. This is 1202. Delete. Yes. So with where this is positioned, we've got 1202 over here, 1200 right here. This is going to be either 1200 or 1202. I'm just more comfortable making it 1202. Looks like we're missing one. Let's click on it, see if we can find where it's at. No, it's way out there. We can just get rid of that. All right. Now, we got our little white glitch right here. I talked to the guy that owns the software company about that, and it will be fixed in the next patch. But for now, we just do this, and then we delete this. I go outlines, add automatic. We got a lot of coverage here. Perfect. Hit OK. Hit OK. All right, so the way that this works is you want to calculate this on the function of the job. So I want to know what my existing is, and when I get to the job, I want to shoot my grades and make sure that what they told me was correct. Now, first thing I do is I come in and I strip off all that topsoil before I can even start to do anything. So our next phase is going to be stripping all of that topsoil. So I like keeping up with the phases, stripping. Let's go in here to a reduce, and now I just followed the entire limits of disturbance. Now, I don't do this because this is a road. I'm not going to be stripping the road. Just get as much as you can. We don't have a geotech. The geotech typically tells you if it's like 2 to 8 inches of topsoil. So I'm just going to assume 6. Should be, what, 1400 something? Yeah, 1455. Cool. All right, now let's hit our proposed. So proposed works very similarly to the existing. When I go into my contours, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to load them in, and I'm going to select the different line sizes, and it'll bring all the lines in. Then I set my elevations. Now on this one, there's not a ton of really good lines, but there are a bunch of points, and we're going to have to set those points. But that's a quick and easy process. We can knock that out very easily. All right, let's go ahead and select the easy one right here. Yeah, so you can see this dark red line over here. That's that retaining wall because they just stack the lines all on top of each other. All right, so we got a 96. There should be a 92, 90. Okay, here we go. Let's go ahead and grab that as well because we need those 10s separately. There we go. All right, so that kind of looks like a project. Let's go ahead and remove some of these like random lines. Yeah. All right, let's finish it out. So we got a line around our building that is not connected. So the first thing I'm going to do is just grab on. Oh, it's just 1200 going around it. But this corner ends up being 1202. That's okay. I'm going to go ahead and join this, make this 1200. We're going to hit up this 1202. This random 1202. Honestly, so this is a weird one right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this. Come on. There we go. So this 1200 line does connect throughout here, which is so weird to me. Because this one can't tie into that because that's a solid line already. So I think what I'm going to do first is I'm going to trace an outline of my building. Because eventually what we're going to do is we're going to reduce this for the pad thickness. So I'm going to go ahead and run this all the way over. Hit my corner. Hit my corner, hit my corner. So I'm just going to trace out the building, and then we're going to look at the FFE, which I see over here, it's 1200. But the FFE, so just thinking ahead, the FFE is the finished floor elevation. That means with your slab and everything installed, that's the elevation that the building is going to be at. which means we have to account for less than that because we're building this project to the subgrade as the dirt contractor. So realistically, we're probably going to be knocking off maybe a foot, sometimes 14 inches. It really just depends. We don't have the architectural plans, so we're not able to make that judgment on how thick, or not. We don't have the structural plans, so we're not able to make the judgment on how thick that this needs to be. And I didn't see anything in the spec details or anything like that. So we're just going to go off of a best whim estimate. All right, it's 1200. Next. All right, let's go back to setting some elevations. So we got 90. No, that's a terrible place to start. Set multiple. 90. Oh, you don't want to cross multiple. 98. Oops, forgot to click on it. 1190. We're going in twos, ascending, continue, next. So just making sure all these match up. Let's pick off the easy ones now. 1198. We got a 96 over here. We got another 98 over here. The inlet's over here, so this is probably 1192. So the thought process behind that is, if you have one of these like ringed lines around an inlet, you want that to be the lowest point because the water needs to flow into those inlets. So since this is in front of it, I'm assuming that this is going to be built up to the same height so that it pushes all the water this way going into this inlet, or it pushes it out this way. Either one is fine. But that's kind of the thought process on why I made that 1192. All right, coming back here, we got 1190 again. We're just doing the cleanup now. All right, so we can see that this is 1190, I believe. Yeah, so we can just set multiple. So this is going to be 1188. Again, we're going in twos, and this time we're going to be descending. Next. So that's that retaining wall. Retaining walls are always going to be this stack of contours, and when you look at your 3D model, it's going to be like a freaking cliff falling off of the page. We got an 1198 out here. And looks like we're missing one. Where is that? I don't know where it is. Well, it can't be that important if I can't find it, so let's just go ahead and get it out of here. Again, we got the multiple elevations glitch. One, closed, finish. Delete that up out of here. And now look, let's go ahead and run through some points. So these spot elevations, I like throwing them in because they give good, especially on these like inlets, because the inlets are where it's actually going to be. Now you see it says 97.73. That's not actually 97. We don't have 1,000-foot difference. If we did, that would be a massive hole. You have to add in the 11. Now what engineers do is they wrongly assume that us estimators are intelligent. So I wish they would just drop them in at the 11s, but you know, sometimes they're just cooler than us and don't have to do stuff. You know, somebody told me one time, an actual engineer, he said, engineers don't make mistakes, they just make amendments. And I think that's true. I've been in a bunch of disputes with a bunch of engineers, and they're just like, oh, well, we're just going to correct these things. And then the burden is still going to fall onto us to either pay for it or deal with it, which is a bunch of crap. That's why we have a legal system. All right, so with the building, I don't feel like I need to add any spot elevations because we do have the FFE contour. I just want to add these in there to kind of hit all of our corners for proposed, 1195.41. I'm not going to knock out every single inlet in here. I am going to knock out some of these random spot elevations throughout here. So like we'll throw 1195.02. When I hit these curbs, I do a little bit of an offset so that when I reduce this later, it is grabbed into there, and I just typed 93. I need to do 1193 next. So it's actually grabbed in the reductions, because what I do is I follow the curb lines to make sure that I'm building myself down to the subgrade. Do want to hit these corners, 95. Actually, let me not do that. Let me do this again. $1195.57. The other one, $1196.42. Imagine if you built this with all these spot elevations at the actual numbers that they are, and you just have a giant hole and you need 5 billion yards of import. 1192.31. Again, I'm just hitting some key ones now. I like hitting things on the outside so that I cover as much area as I can, but what you don't want to do is cover so much area that you start bringing in a bunch of extraneous materials. That's kind of the balance of doing a dirt takeoff, is doing just enough to where you're, like if I do too much area, I start getting extra materials, which means I'm going to be bidding high. If I don't get enough, I'm not bidding enough, and now I'm out, or my client is out a bunch of money, and that is not good. My business is built on accuracy, precision, consistency, which arguably all businesses are. All right, don't think that we have much else. I'll throw this drain in here for sure. 1197.75. Hit finish. Now let's hit our outline real quick. Automatic. So you'll see we are like right outside of this area right here. So we're hitting the corner of this building. Looks like there's like a small 1202 line right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to delete this outline. Go back into my contours. And I'm just going to add in a 1202 right here. Because what this is going to do is it's going to take a little bit of that burden off of that building, so that when we go to do our reduction, we're not just cutting away a lot of the project. All right, now let's pay attention real quick. So this is following almost straight on these limits of disturbances. We have a little bit outside on this entrance, which makes sense. It's an entrance. So typically what you can do is you can adjust your kind of threshold, which will just shrink it to where it's like almost exactly point to point with all of these, and not making these like broad assumptions. But this is pretty close, so it's about the best we're going to get. Let's hit OK. All right, so as this is loading in, we have to remember that this is just to finish grade. So if I was building this to entire finish grade, if this entire lot was just dirt, I would need 9,000. Well, it's going to be 30% more, because you have a compaction reduction factor, typically anywhere from 25 to 30%. So essentially when you take that dirt out, it's already been compacted, and then the dirt that you bring in is uncompacted, and you have to drop it back in, compact it. You get a little bit of shrinkage out of that. So we have to build this to our sub base. So what I need to do is I need to figure out what my actual asphalt pavement depth is, to figure out what elevation that I actually need to build these things down to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through and find it. I have it on a sheet, but I can't open that sheet because it's got client information on it. But our standard duty asphalt is 9.5 inches. So we're going to go ahead and reduce. I know the area because I've looked at this already. So we're going to follow these curb lines essentially. And now this is where the things get really monotonous, when you're having to trace a bunch of stuff, which is kind of how we're going to do this. But I'll be here for the ride for you guys. So all I'm trying to do is follow this line. And what we have to remember is we're building a subgrade, but we also, as a dirt contractor, have to do things outside of the dirt. So like the contractors that we work with, not only do they do dirt, they also do a bunch of utilities and stuff like that. But the main thing that coincides with the dirt is that we either have stone subbase or we have soil cement. If you're not familiar with soil cement, basically you get these big, giant garden tillers. You put cement, like ash form cement, onto the dirt, and then those garden tillers mix it into the soil. They flood it with a bunch of water, and then they compact it. After they compact it, they come back, they mix it again, they water it again, they roll it again, and then they'll come back through, usually scrape off the top with like a motor grader or something, and just make sure everything is really solid. So sometimes your mix design, like something in here, I would expect 6 or 8% at probably, I don't know, maybe 8 to 10 inches at most. But soil cement is a very cost-effective way to kind of get a solidified base. Now with stone's pretty straightforward. You lay anywhere from 6 to 10 inches, maybe sometimes even a foot of stone, and that gives you your sub base. Now, if we have to lay stone, we calculate the stone separately for our contractors. But if you're doing soil cement, you have to pay attention to how much soil has to be left in there from the soil cement, because we have to take that out of our reduction, because we want that amount of dirt to stay in the project, because there has to be dirt there to mix the soil cement into. On this one, we have stone base, so we're really cleared. Our total paving is 9.5 inches for this standard duty asphalt. So right now what I'm doing is I'm taking out these sections. You'll see that they become darker. What this is doing is it is excluding these islands, because if we didn't take these out, it would be calculating that we need to reduce these islands 12 inches as well. Typically these islands are just landscaped islands, which these are. So that dirt needs to stay in there. It's fine if it gets built back to fill. If you want to be like incredibly thorough, you can do like a 4-ish inch reduction on these areas for your topsoil. But honestly, I think that's like a little bit of overkill. If the 4 inches of topsoil over, I don't even know, 6,000 square foot is the thing that loses you the job, man, I will pay you for the amount of money that you should have made with that 4-inch reduction. So nothing exciting here. Again, we're just running through, tracing these lines. I just got to get these, islands out of this reduction. Next, we're going to be looking at that building pad. Again, we don't have the structural plan, so I don't know how thick that pad is. So we're going to make a general assumption. Sometimes those pads are anywhere from 14 to sometimes 24 inches. We also don't have a geotech to tell us those foundations. We also don't know about undercut. So whenever you don't know about something, make sure you visibly exclude it on your proposals. So with undercut specifically, we're going to be like, with no geotech provided, all undercut or remove and replace materials will be excluded. The important thing about exclusions is that you are very, very clear on anything. So notice on that one, we say undercut or remove and replace with materials, because in the past people have argued remove and replace materials is not the same as undercutting, and I was kind of baffled that these people were even trying to make that argument, but they were trying to not pay for it. Again, that's why we have a legal system. All right, so here's our asphalt. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. I'm going to keep up with what this is, so I'm going to put asphalt adjust over here. And I do know that it is 9.5 inches. I'm going to go ahead and edit that. I'm assuming that this is going to take us to 7,500 cubic yards-ish. Let's see. 79. So I was about 450 off. It's not too bad. All right, now let's hit our building pad adjust. Again, this is just tracing some lines. This one's going to be way quicker because there's way less lines. Let's just run this straight through. Doesn't have, oh, whoops. Don't right click on accident. So for the sake of the video, I'm not going to follow these lines incredibly accurately. A little bit of a buffer time, no big deal. Let's go ahead and chop, 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 chop. Boom, 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 boom. So we're going to go ahead and make an assumption that this is going to be a 14-inch pad. Now we can right click, hit finish, hit OK. Let's go ahead and go do building pad, adjust, 143 inches. Man, that's a big old pad. All right, guys, if you've made it this far, comment where you're from. I'm from kind of the Memphis, Tennessee area. I work with clients all over the United States, but out of Memphis, Tennessee, been here basically my whole life. All right, so we're looking at 7,100 cubic yards. Now, we could drop in this sidewalk right here. For the sake of the video, we're not going to do 4-inch sidewalk, and we're not going to do this dumpster pad. But so here's what we need to look at. I'm going to go ahead and change this to a 3D orbit view, which gives us kind of the model. So you can see, I'm going to go ahead and exaggerate this so that we can see a little bit better. And then I'm going to change this to colors. It's easier to see the colors. So you can see the indentation of our pad. You can see there's like an actual slope right here, so that like it's actually indicating how far we're actually cutting. Here's your entrance, here's those islands. This is how we're going to be built out before we put in that stone base and that asphalt. And then if we spin around to the other side, here's that giant cliff that I was talking about. And that is that retaining wall. Now, our retaining wall is going to be excluded. We don't really have to deal with any of that. And now, this is your dirt takeoff. So the way we look at it is your cut and fill. We call it on-site cut and fill, which is basically the price to actually move and install the actual dirt. And then our imported fill. So the way we would price it is we would price our stripping, we would price our on-site cut and fill. We would price the imported fill as its own material, plus markups, of course. And then we would redistribute the topsoil, haul out the excess topsoil. But yeah, this is your dirt takeoff. Brought it to you in a flash. Appreciate y'all being here. Make sure you subscribe. Follow me on Instagram at TeachMeDirt. I'll see y'all next time. Thanks. See ya.